Opera Essence, 100% freshly squeezed opera juice, is an opera a colori podcast, giving you everything you need to know to help you enjoy the world's finest operas. In this episode, we explore the plot of Rigoletto by Giuseppe Verdi. Act 1. A party is in full swing. Amongst the merriment, singing and music, the Duke of Mantova confesses to his trusty friend Borsa that he finally wants to have his way with a girl who he has been courting every Sunday in church for the last 3 months and who lives in an isolated house. The Duke takes the opportunity to reiterate his idea of love, that for him, one woman is just as good as another. Marullo, another courtier, arrives with some incredible gossip. It seems that Rigoletto, the hunchback jester of the court, has a lover. As the party continues, the Duke shamelessly manifests his lascivious intentions to the Countess Ceprano. This behaviour angers her husband, provoked also by Rigoletto, who publicly makes fun of him. The party is abruptly interrupted by the Duke Monterone, who bursts into the room to reclaim the honour of his daughter, who has been seduced by the Duke. However, he receives only obscene insults, especially from Rigoletto. Offended, Monterone is unable to contain his rage and declares a terrible curse. On his way home, Rigoletto is forced to reflect on the terrible words Monterone uttered when, from the dark, a mysterious figure emerges. Here is Sparafucile, a highwayman, who, noticing the restlessness of the buffoon, informs him of his services, which include the killing of enemies. Rigoletto sends him away, but reflects on his offer for the whole journey. On his arrival home, he is welcomed by Gilda, his daughter, who throws herself into his arms. Rigoletto greets her with affection, but is quickly overwhelmed by dark thoughts. He reminds his daughter to never have feelings for anyone in the world other than herself, and to never leave the house for any reason. He orders Gilda's maid, Giovanna, to keep watch over her day and night. Alone with Giovanna, Gilda confesses to have noticed and to be attracted to a young man in church. As she confesses, she is interrupted by a man's voice. It is the voice of the young man she was talking about. He approaches her and declares his love for her, telling her he is a student by the name of Gualtiero Maldè. It is actually the Duke of Mantova in disguise. Gilda attempts to resist his advances, but responds to his admission of love with her own sweet nothings. Footsteps heard nearby startle the Duke into leaving the scene, while Gilda daydreams about the man she believes to be Gualtiero Maldè. Outside of the house, a group of courtiers have gathered. Led by Marullo, Borsa and Ceprano are intent on kidnapping the young girl, who they believe to be Rigoletto's lover. The jester joins them and asks what they're doing. Marullo tells him that they plan on kidnapping the Countess of Ceprano, and the hunchback courtier offers to lend them a hand. After they blindfold him, they make him hold the stepladder still while they enter the courtyard. Gilda's screams alarm Rigoletto, who is quick to understand that they have actually kidnapped his daughter. Act 2. Inside his palace, the Duke of Mantova cannot come to terms with the fact that the girl he has courted all this time has been kidnapped. Shortly after, the courtiers enter and reveal to him to have kidnapped the girl and brought her to the palace. The Duke is thrilled to have found Gilda and runs to see her. Rigoletto arrives. He tries to hide his apprehension from the courtiers who provoke him and who believe they have abducted his lover. The court jester, in a moment of desperation, reveals that they have actually taken his daughter, and implores them to let her free. Gilda enters in a state of agitation and embraces her father, who signals to the others to leave the room. Alone together, Gilda begins to tell her father what happened: the meetings in church with the Duke, the kidnapping, and finally the molestation she has suffered. Rigoletto is horrified by these accounts and can't help but console the young girl. Just at that moment, Monterone is about to be taken into prison and complains, saying there is no way to make the Duke pay for his libertine conduct. Shaken by the words of Monterone, Rigoletto recovers his pride as a wounded father and, despite Gilda begging him to forgive the Duke, swears revenge. Act 3. Rigoletto, intent on carrying out his plan, hires Sparafucile to murder the Duke. The hitman has invited the nobleman to his tavern on the banks of the river Mincio, promising him a night with his sister and accomplice, Maddalena. Shortly after, Rigoletto and Gilda arrive. The girl is still not able to believe that the man she loves is in reality a libertine who took advantage of her innocence. So the hunchback hopes to convince her by showing her how her beloved Duke of Mantova shamelessly flirts with Maddalena. Sure of having succeeded in convincing his daughter, Rigoletto orders her to run away to Verona, and he meets with Sparafucile to lay down the final details of the murder. The Duke is to be killed for the sum of 20 crowns, his body stuffed into a sack, and at the strike of midnight, Rigoletto himself will throw the man into the river Mincio. Left alone, Sparafucile is joined by Maddalena, who, enamoured of the Duke, asks her brother to spare his life. But Sparafucile is adamant and declares that he will never betray the trust of his client. Maddalena is steadfast and comes to an agreement with her brother. If by midnight someone knocks at their door, that person will be killed in place of the nobleman and sent to Rigoletto to be thrown into the river. The diabolical conversation is overheard by Gilda, who decides to sacrifice herself for her beloved. And so, as a violent storm is about to break out, the young girl knocks on the door of the tavern, pretending to be a beggar. Maddalena opens the door, and Sparafucile falls upon the visitor, stabbing her repeatedly. At exactly midnight, Rigoletto knocks at Sparafucile's door. He opens it and hands over a large bag containing the body to the hunchback. Rigoletto contemplates these events, the sack at his feet, but his happiness is quickly destroyed. In the dark night, he hears the booming voice of the Duke. Eaten up with angst, he unties the sack and discovers, inside, his daughter, Gilda. The father despairs while his daughter, aware of her imminent death, gathers her last ounces of energy to implore his pardon and assure him of her prayers once she reaches her mother in heaven. The hunchback jester can do nothing but embrace her for the last time, while his mind resounds with the terrible curse cast by Monterone, which has now been carried out in all its unrelenting power. Now you're familiar with the storyline, why don't you listen to our 5 Fun Facts podcast to find out more interesting features surrounding this opera? And now, the house lights are dimmed. It's time to enjoy the show. Opera Essence, 100% freshly squeezed opera juice, is an opera a colori production. This episode was written by Tommaso Quanilli, produced by Selena Bellomi and Ivo Rizzi, and presented by Felicity Murphy. Follow us on our social media pages at Opera a Colori.